Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. It's Wednesday morning, February 16th, and this is the Senate Agricultural Committee meeting. And today we have folks in from the Vermont and Field Days group, and it's good to see you. Oh, some of you were open last year for the fairs and things, and it seemed good to have that happen. So I guess Jackie will let you lead off, and I don't know if we have some new people, but the committee could introduce themselves first. Chris.
Morning, everybody. Chris Pearson from Chittenden.
Hi, Anthony Polina, Washington County.
Brian Collmore, Rutland County.
Corey Parent from Franklin County and Alberg.
And I'm Bobby Starr, Senator from Essex, Orleans County. So welcome, and turn it over to Jackie.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. We're going to have to stop meeting like this. I think it's 3 days in a row for you and I, and got to watch the conversations going on out there. Anyhow, thank you very much for giving us some time to speak to your committee. This is something we do annually, and we're very, very sad that we can't do it in person. However, I do need to tell you that Senator Benning has given me such grief about not being there and handing out the maple syrup nips that I am making arrangements to have them in the building by the end of your session. So no fear on that, because I was afraid he'd never let us in institutions again. So we will make arrangements. But glad to be here this morning, and I've got a full crew. Senator Perrin, I'm sorry I don't have anyone from Franklin County, but they didn't offer to volunteer to be on, but I know that you're meeting with them in regards to their land issues. So thank you very much for leading the charge on that. I appreciate it.
Well, you didn't tell them, Jackie, if they didn't show up, they weren't getting any money.
Okay, that's our secret, Senator Starr, please. I do not want to be the one telling anyone that.
I'm trying to get them boatloads of money.
Well, we're talking to the right committee, right, Senator Parent? So thank you very much. I had sent a broadside of information to Linda. Hopefully it's on your website, and if not, we can send it again. I usually do an economic information piece, and it's based on comparisons within the last couple of years. But as you know, we didn't have fairs in 2020, so we have no comparisons. But I thought you'd be interested to know from between 2021 and the 2 years ago, attendees were down between the 2 years, but of course there was no farm show, no maple festival, and no dairy festival last year. Exhibitors were down and premiums were down. Interestingly enough, volunteers, who are such a powerful component of all of our fairs, were down by about 500 people, but volunteer hours were up by 2,000. So you can see who's picking up the slack and making sure that these little fairs continue. Despite having three groups not holding events, the amount of money that the fair spent in the community totaled $1,784 and $1,784. And that was only down $200,000 from the 2020 year. So that's pretty spectacular that they're still spending money in the communities. And as you can imagine, non-fair events were down significantly just because there were so many folks that were canceling. I think Tim will tell you that happened at a significant rate up at the Champlain Valley Expo. So I'm going to turn it over to the folks, and we've got some time. We've got a good mix. We've got Addison, Essex Junction, the Farm Show, and Rutland Fair. So I think the first one to speak is going to be Tim Shea, and we'll all be here for questions afterwards. We just really appreciate the support you've all have given us over the years. Tim?
Great, thanks, Jackie, and thank you to the committee for allowing us time on your busy agenda. Tim Shea, Champlain Valley Exposition. I'm also president of the Fair and Field Days Association. Again, I want to thank you for the support you've given to the fairs throughout the state, not just this past year, but for years and years. It's been the fair business has always been kind of fickle to begin with. Throw in a pandemic that's gone on farther than any of us ever thought it would or wanted to. But those that did run last year, had good events. We had, not a record year, but certainly pleased with the outcome of the turnout that we had. Naively, we thought we were kind of this pandemic was in the rear view mirror at that point, but it kind of continues on with, sadly, the cancellation of the farm show for 2 years now in a row. We've lost, a number of our events. The first quarter historically is the busiest one for us, special event wise, with the farm show, as well as the Yankee Sportsman Classic and a number of other shows. And all of those, for the most part, have canceled in 2021. So we're still, like many, working our way out of this. I think we have a path out of it, but the support that you've provided along the way really helps us to kind of minimize the impact that the pandemic has had on us. Some good news, while we weren't in our traditional business, we were a vaccine clinic last year, and I think we administered about 85,000 vaccines at the Champlain Valley Expo. So while we weren't hosting farm shows and boat shows and other shows, we were able to repurpose our facility and provide some public good. So we were proud to be able to play a small part in the state's recovery from the pandemic. So again, echoing what I said, and Jackie said, just thank you for the support you've given all the fairs for so many years.
Thank you, Tim. Is Diane up next? Morning, Diane.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. As you know, my name's Diane Norris. I represent Addison County Fair and Field Days. I'm currently the president at that fair. Again, I'd like to just thank your committee in particular for the extra funds that we received. They definitely allowed us to just pay our monthly bills. We were right at the cusp of having to borrow money to pay our monthly bills when we got that first shot of money in, and what a godsend. So thank you for keeping us in your thoughts there. I just was going to highlight a few of the things that we've done with the money in the past. I was going to start with the 2016. We did our grant money was $23,246. And we built a new addition on our office where we actually have a meeting room so we can now meet at the fairgrounds. And we built a maintenance shop, and we actually spent $50,000 of our own along with your $23,000. But without the seed money that we get from the grants, there's just no way we could do our infrastructures. In 2017, we upgraded our camper lines. We actually have 30 amps of power at all of our lines now, and huge improvement. We did do a line this past year of 10 campers that now do have 50 amp service. So that camper upgrade, again, our grant was $21,976, and we chipped in another $43,000 to make that upgrade. We did more electrical upgrades in 18. This was the year that we worked with Green Mountain Power and changed the way the power is delivered to the fair. So the way we're billed is that the day that you spend the most money at the fair is how they do your rate for the whole year. So when you're only out there 5 days, it seemed kind of harsh that we pay that high rate the whole rest of the year. So we went ahead and spent $19,741 from your grant money, and we chipped in another $61,000 to get that done. We ended up putting up 21 different meters on different poles. And in the past, our fair week, our power bill would have been somewhere in the vicinity of $15,000 to $18,000. And this past year, we were $6,000. So we're looking at a pretty fast payback for doing that upgrade. In 2019, our grant was $23,144 for a poultry barn. Due to the fact that building supplies were so costly, we opted not to build. It is on the docket, and actually we just ordered our building supplies. So that building will be going up hopefully in early June. Originally, the grant was $23,144. We expect the building to total cost around $50,000. So more than doubling the money that we put in there. In 2020, we received $25,000, And we were pretty fortunate to do some pretty major road improvements. And considering the amount of rain that we got in 21, it was a huge improvement. So we spent 46,000 on improving the roads, using 25,000 to get us started. In 21, we got 32,303. We finished our sewer project with the Welcome Center, which all of you are aware was a bit of a nightmare for us, but I think we're in good shape finally, with plenty of storage to hold for our 5-day fair. And our permit is in good standing and registered with the state. And I think we finally got the clean bill of sale on that. We also, we're going to use some of that money for a new museum building. And that will be going up this year as well. Again, didn't do it last year because of cost of building materials. And just recently, we were awarded 30,144, and we're going to build an antique tractor shed. Normally, the tent that we put up for that building is about $7,500. Tents are becoming quite the nightmare, so we're pretty pleased that we would already plan this project, and we think that project's actually going to cost about $55,000. So that's kind of where we're at with the money that we spent, that you've given us. And you know, without the seed money, we wouldn't get any of it done. And building the infrastructure at the fair is just so critical. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Senator Collmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Diane, the best news you gave us in your excellent report was I can go to the Welcome Center now at the Addison County Field Days and go to the bathroom legally. So thank you very much. And I appreciate all the work you guys had to do. And it was an unneeded nightmare.
Oh yeah, it was not good at all. Did you put an extra tank in? Is that what you had to do?
We did, yes. We had to put an extra 9,000 gallon tank. And, you know, it's kind of twofold. So the original tank we put in, they decided needed to have more footage put on it. So when we dug up the new tank, we had to dig up the old tank and pour more cement around the footings, because there's a possibility that at some point it could float to the top. So in order for us to get the permit for the second tank, we had to do the correction on the first tank, which had only been in the ground for a year anyways. We assured them that it wouldn't come up, that we would always leave it half full. And their comment was that the same board would not always be in place, and we could forget and empty that tank and it could possibly float.
Yeah,
So
very
we do have that in.
very accommodating group of people.
Yeah, every time we thought we had it figured out, there was just, oh, wait a minute, now you need to do this.
Well, it's good news that you've got it done, and it's hell to give you money in one hand and then have you give it back to the state or contractor in the other hand.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a vicious cycle.
it is.
Robert Congdon. Morning, Robert.
Good morning, all. Thank you again for having us, and I appreciate as well. I've got a similar reactions to my predecessors here in where we are down here in Rutland, and just great appreciation for all that you all have done to secure the funding for us. The extra funding, similar to what Diane just shared with you, really went to keeping us afloat through all those cancellations through that COVID time. And one of the big pieces for us that it allowed us to do is it allowed us to stay on track to having our past debt paid off from what I call the years of trouble in Rutland. We, as many of you know, had those. They're firmly behind us now is where we're at. And it allowed us to pay off on time and not go behind and have to go back to the lender and ask for an extension and all that. It allowed us to stay on schedule to get that long-term liability taken care of. So our grounds are officially lien free, is the exciting news for that. And as Brian would know, the lien was on the Mandago Arena, the old hockey arena. So that was what is now free and clear back ours again. So that's good news for us. As far as grant money and what we have done over the last few years, we were able to build also a museum. We were able to add that into one of our buildings. We were able to put in 2 bathroom facilities, which were much needed, especially in our vendor area where vendors can't leave their booths very long to run to the restroom. So we were able to put some facilities back in use that had been kind of mothballed for a while and were unusable, and it allowed us to do a full renovation. And in the process, we were able to get those fully ADA compliant as well. So it allowed us more ADA accessible facilities on the grounds, which were much needed as well, because we're facing an aging infrastructure. I mean, the fairgrounds has been where it is since 1846. So we have a lot of facilities that are in need of different things. The last year's grant money and this year's grant money are allocated to go to replacing the roof on one of our main exhibit halls. That's about we received between the 2 years about $50,000 in grant money. The project is slated to cost us anywhere from 75 to 100. So that's a big piece of our being able to do that. Like Diane said, without the seed money, we wouldn't be able to tackle these projects. We wouldn't be able to do these things. So it's a huge blessing to us to have access to that. We also were able to complete some projects. We completed the overhaul of our first aid building, which dates back to about the turn of the century, which was, those old display buildings and those old buildings were all just built on the ground, and the footings that the sills after a while rot away, and there's lots of things that have to be done to upkeep those. So the grant money allowed us to do that. Going forward from here, we're going to continue to pick away at our infrastructure. We've got other buildings that certainly need attention. We also, in the long term, at least I have the dream to get a stage rebuilt, because the stage was torn down a number of years ago, and we certainly need a stage again. It's a massive rental cost each year during the fair. And also we have some electrical things like Diane shared. Our track lighting and different things like that comes in on 3-phase power from Green Mountain Power, and it's the same deal where they see that spike, and then you're going to be paying on that spike for the remainder of the year, and that certainly is something that over time we would like to look into, and we've started to talk to Efficiency Vermont about what are LED options to change out some of that old lighting to get it a little bit more efficient, or a lot more efficient, because it's certainly a draw. And then we also, I know Tim and Diane didn't mention it, but the 3 of us are under the 3-acre rule, and we're having to look at what is that going to cost us ultimately in the long run. And the reality is it looks to be, at least in our 3 cases, pretty substantial between the engineering studies and the projects ultimately that are going to have to be completed through the program, which is certainly going to be a massive part of what we're going to be looking at in the years to come. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you all for the way in which you've supported us year in and year out. You all are truly a blessing to all of us. So thank you.
Bobby, you're muted.
Yeah, I had to shut the phone off. I was telling Robert that it's nice to hear him say those nice things about us, because we don't always get those nice things said about us. But anyway, thanks, Robert, and we'll go to Dave Martin.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Starr. The Vermont Farm Show is a little bit different than the other fairs. One, we don't get a capital grant because we don't have any property. We don't own stuff. And the other difference is the farm show occurs in January. So in 2020, that was a good thing. We were able to hold the farm show in 2020, but later in the year, the fairs were not. And then in 2021, we were not able to hold a farm show, and the fairs were able to hold their fairs. And then the same thing I think is happening this year. In 2022, we had to cancel our show, and I'm really hoping that the rest of the fairs, that COVID will calm down and there'll be a successful summer season. The farm show did get a stipend grant of just a little over $3,000. And then that special one-time appropriation of $26,000 was really, really welcome because the new show manager that we had hired moved on, and suddenly we had to find somebody to manage the show. And we ended up hiring Delaney Event Management, and that was a lot more expensive than we expected. But that money really came in handy. And we have made some changes in how the show is presented, and we look forward to continuing some of those changes to sort of reflect how agriculture is changing in Vermont, and do some work to help educate the general public in Vermont about the importance of Vermont agriculture and help them understand that. And our hope is that will in turn help the Vermont public support Vermont agriculture, purchase Vermont agricultural products in the long run. So we're disappointed we had to cancel the 2022 show. Think it was the right thing to do. We're looking forward to 2023, and we'll continue trying to keep the show viable and meaningful to the folks in Vermont. And the support from the legislature has been really important to us.
Well, thank you, Dave. The farm show and the fairs we know how hard all you volunteers work at putting this stuff on, and the hours you spend putting it together, and it's keeping our agriculture, as you said, Dave, and it's really there's been a transition, away from, we used to have thousands and thousands of dairy farms, and I guess we got about 550 left or something. But we've got all these other ag things going on, and it's at the fairs and at the farm show and places like that our citizens get to see all the new positive stuff that's happening. And I know last year, I believe it was last year, or maybe it was 2020, when we found out, the ag committee, we found out that there wasn't going to be any fairs. Our committee was very supportive of going to the appropriations committee and suggesting that we get you folks some money, some of this federal money that we had coming in, and we were very glad that it all worked out, and we could help a little bit, at least getting you some extra funds. So committee members, do you have comments or questions of some of the fair people? Are you getting to go see some other committees today or in the near future?
We are booked solid today, Senator. We've got 5 committees to go to. And I just wanted to also finish with some of the other updates of some things that have been going on at the fairs over the years. A couple years ago, we had quite the discussion with the Secretary of State on several of the fairs that included Champlain Valley, Rutland, and Orleans and Caledonia regarding demo derbies. And I
Yeah.
have to say that many thanks to Lauren Hibbert at the Secretary of State's office. She was amazing to work with. She really helped in a positive way. And I know Robert, not Robert, but I think Orleans County Fair used some of their capital grants to fix up their grandstand so that they were able to meet the requirements of the Secretary of State. All of them have passed inspections and they're all good to go. So that was a positive thing. What we've run into this year that Robert didn't mention was a new challenge for the fairs, and that is he has and I should probably let you tell this story, Robert, but he has a new fire chief down there who started reading rules and regulations with a fine tooth comb, kind of what Diane ran into with the DEC over there. And he had to send some of his folks at the last minute to a crowd management certification program. And apparently they are going to be looking at all the fairs in regards to this. It has a lot to do with that challenge that they had out in Texas where the crowd became unmanageable and there were several people that were injured and I think even killed. And we've been watching the event from afar, but we've been warned that all the insurance companies that cover the fairs, and I should say they're not a lot of them, but they will be looking to see if the fairs going forward actually have a crowd management and an exit and entrance protocols set up so that if there is an emergency, regardless if you have a grandstand or if you have an event like Diane's got where it's an open grandstand for the tractor pulls, they will have to have something filed. So we're going to be working on that this year. We're trying to get in touch with the fire marshal and the Division of Fire Safety at the state and talk about how we can have our fairs with enough certification that they can go forward. One of the problems that Robert has found out is that this might mean rather massive changes to his grandstand, which will come into some significant funds. Apparently there's so much, and Tim, I don't know if you had to do this yet or not, but you have to have large enough aisles, specifically sized aisles up and down on both sides of a handrail. And so we're now trying to check in and see how that's going to work. Robert mentioned that he and Addison and Champlain Valley are involved in this 3-acre rule, and actually Orleans just got pulled into it because of Lake Memphremagog. So we have 4 fairs that have anywhere from 10 acres to, Tim, I think you have the most at 23, who have already been in touch with engineers, but have also already had to pay a fee to be part of the 3-acre program. And this it's an annual fee. It runs anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 that they're having to pay. And this is even before they get into the engineering program. So it's a challenge. The other thing that Diane mentioned was trying to get tents. We have heard anecdotally that the supply chain issue has also hit the fairs, in that getting tents is an issue. Last year, Dick Lawrence had tremendous amount of trouble getting security for Caledonia County Fair because of the challenges with the local police departments and the county police. He couldn't even find security to hire for his fair. So he was really concerned with that. And the last thing I'd like to say is that, and I see Diane's ready to go, and maybe Robert will chip in here too. In the interest of trying to find out how the fairs can better access people and better be involved with folks, Dave and Diane attended the Farm to Plate annual meeting and had a workshop with some folks. And when they reported, what I mostly got out of it was that folks really didn't know what the fairs did and what they had to offer, and that they work with the nonprofits, and that they try to benefit the community as opposed to, it's a couple guys with some cows in the barn, So we've discovered we need to do some work on perception, but I think we always have to do that because these farms are growing and they're engaged in their communities, and they're really something that the state should be proud of, and they are a harbinger of what agriculture was, but they also promote what we are and where we'll be in the future. And I think we're preaching to the choir with this committee. You all know that, but maybe Diane would like to say something about the 3-acre rule and what she's going through. And then Robert can talk about the crowd management issue.
Yeah, it would be good to hear more about the 3-acre rule for, a little country fair that's held 5 days a year.
You're bleeding my blood, Senator Starr. We're a 5-day fair. We sit out in the middle of a old abandoned farm. There's no city or town within 12 miles of us. We don't use any fertilizer. All we do is mow the grass. But we're lucky enough to have 19.73 acres of rooftop and roadways. And our engineer that we've been working with tells us that our cost to get into compliance with the way the rule is written is going to be somewhere around $40,000 per acre. That's $800,000. I'm not quite sure how we could ever afford to do that with a 5-day fair. So my plea to you, Ms. Senator Starr, and the Senate Ag Committee, is there any way that we can work around some kind of an exemption for our county fairs? Because I don't believe that anything we do out there is really going to improve any of the water running off. So that's my plea to you.
Do they use an acre as what most of us call like 43,000 square feet?
I believe that is correct. So
And
what they
you
do
have,
is they go out and they measure, like we have stone roadways. Excuse me. So they measure all of those roadways and then all the rooftops.
but do they
That's how they
give
get
you,
that number.
do they give you any credit toward your drainage area, the number of acres of fields or mowed grassland where that water may be running to soak into the soils?
To my knowledge, no.
Chris, were you on Natural Resources
So-
back when that all took place?
Yeah, and
Because I know you
Th-
wouldn't have
this is-
voted for that.
yeah, it fell to me to report it on the floor, so it's all my fault. Listen, this is not trivial for you all, obviously, and nor is it actually a place where the policy and the duration and the short duration of the fairs really is meaningful because it rains all year. And we know that, our clean waterways, if we have dirty water, we're not going to have people coming to fairs, right? There's a whole thing here, but I'd love to see us, rather than an exemption, and Senator Parent, I'll give him credit, was just texting me this idea. I mean, we ought to help you just pay for this. I mean, we do have to deal with water quality from impervious surfaces, whether it's out in the middle of the county for a fair or at a corporate headquarters in Williston. To me, we have to deal with this, but the economics for you all with these very traditional marginal businesses in that sense, is totally unfair. So I'm very hopeful we can figure out a way to help you. And I guess I don't know if that helps you, Senator Starr, but that's where
Bobby, I was on natural resources, but I actually also, my day job, run a stormwater utility. They report to me for a municipality. And I mean, the hard part, I think, of an exemption is like the state of Vermont pays us for the roads they have. And so if we exempt theirs, and are we going to exempt roads? And this is the nexus of this is all on impervious surface. I think the point, to Chris's point, is like VTrans in the state gives towns 80% of the money to do some of these projects. We can get grants where we're only putting in 20% of the money. I think we should design a program. I even think 100% of the money this is a federal requirement put on the state, and then the states put it on municipalities. We have $100 million we're investing in water quality between everything, like annually right now, and we have infrastructure money and ARPA money, which can specifically go into stormwater. There should be plenty of money, and I know it's expensive in these places, and I don't think Addison County should be paying for theirs. I don't think Franklin County should be paying for theirs, and Champlain Valley Exposition should be paying for theirs. But I think, to Senator Pearson's point, that I did text him, we should come up with funding to fund this for them. So then the work gets done. It doesn't put the stress on the fairs, but we get the environmental, benefit there. I think that's the most realistic approach to actually take on this, because what I worry about in the exemption is, at what point does the school district say, well, we're a public asset and this just raises property taxes that we have to pay these fees and do this work, you know what I mean? So then it really then you have to build bigger ones elsewhere to offset the water flow. So I think we're just better off paying for it in some capacity while we have this stimulus money available to us.
Well, what's gonna happen when the stimulus money's gone?
Well, with a lot of
It's not gonna
these,
last forever,
right? But with a lot of these, the state can turn them over. So like with this, if they're in a municipality, like I'm surprised, maybe Champlain Valley's not in Essex, but Essex, I think, has a stormwater utility. I'm surprised they're not already paying an annual fee to the town for their impervious, because even the railroad pays us $18,000 a year for the rail lines going through. Like the railroad doesn't pay for anything, but they have to pay this fee to the town of St. Albans and the city of St. Albans where it runs through. And that's the money we use. And then the town owns the stormwater facilities that we build forever. And part of the annual fee becomes our maintenance and replacement and all of that. So it's going to come to more places in Vermont because they're kind of forced to do it. I think only 8 or 9 towns have it, but I think we build in a mechanism as part of what we use to fund these programs that, it has stormwater maintenance and, involved, because it's really just mowing twice a year for 20 years. And then in 20 years, we'll have to rebuild them. But, 20-25 year lifespan is what you have on those gravel wetlands.
Well, I understand collecting the water off from asphalt and non-pervious surfaces, because that's dirty water that's collecting oil drippings and food scraps and you name it. But on pervious surfaces and where your water runs over like grass for 2 acres before if it even gets off the 2 acres, I think there should have been a lot more work done on that whole issue. But Chris, go ahead.
Well, just to back up Senator Parent, this is not the state's choice. This is part of the TMDL and the lawsuit with the EPA. But maybe Diane could confirm this. A lot of these are one-time investments, right? They're not necessarily an ongoing thing. So as I understand, like a rain garden or a catchment area, those kinds of things, it is sort of well suited to one-time investments, I should think, but maybe Diane could clarify that if I'm wrong.
I would agree. I think it is a one-time investment.
And I think Senator Pearson, and on Diane's behalf, it wasn't that it's just a 5-day fair, and yes, it does rain all year, but I think the point is they have 5 days to make $800,000 more.
Right.
They have limited time to make income. That was, I think, the reference there, and I know you all understand that, but and I love this conversation, and I think it's great. But the challenge also is the state hasn't even come up with the other side of the mountains yet. So we're looking at Orleans just got pulled in because of Memphremagog, but I've got Caledonia, Bradford, the guys on the other side, on the east side of the mountains. They haven't even been looked at yet. So if you do something like putting up some money aside to help them pay for this, there's a little bit of angst on the other side yet for those who have not been named. So I
think all of them should be preparing for this, because I think the 3 acre rule is going to get cut down pretty quickly to 1/2 acre. And at least I know for the MS4 is what it's called, the permit we have in St. Albans, we have till 2036 to make these pieces, put these pieces in place. So from a state perspective, or like, whether we do it through a capital bond, our capital bill, or we do it through this funding, theoretically, if we put a couple $1 million a year into these projects, and kind of started at the top of a priority list and worked our way through, over the next decade, we'd kind of get them handled. I don't think anyone's expecting this to get done tomorrow. It's just putting the plan in place. And, I'm not, I think we should probably, while the money's, we have all this money, this seems to be one of those areas where you can make a one-time investment for, a capital project that happens for a long time and saves money to the organizations. I agree with you. I don't think you guys have the revenue streams to be able to pay for this, and I wouldn't want to put it on you. I think there could be a better solution than just a pure exemption. I think just have us pay for it makes sense to me anyway.
Senator Colmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other issue, and I attended a DEC meeting in Rutland, it's probably 3 or 4 years ago now. The EPA had a deadline by which all of this had to be done. And I asked the question of the Department of Environmental Conservation, there's 2 pieces at work here. Do we have enough engineers in the state to be able to handle what is going to be an incredibly busy time for those folks? And even if we have the engineering studies complete, and they're not cheap, then you got to do the work. And I'm not sure that there are contractors available to the degree that we're going to need them to get the work done. So I asked for a 3-year pause on the date, I think, and I haven't ever heard whatever happened to that. I don't know if it was a bill that I put in or an amendment, but it went into Senate Natural, and Senator Bray was going to kind of do some research. So I think there's a lot of things at play here, and I would certainly favor giving the fairs a little bit more time. Corey, you mentioned 2036, so that's 14. It sounds like a long ways away. That's only 14 years from now, and yet I'm not sure we have the people in the state that are capable of doing the work, even if we could find the money.
Tim?
If I could add to that comment briefly, and just to the logistics of conducting the work, and how do we have to cease operation for a while? We're 33 acres, about $1.5 million to fix this. And let's say we decided to do it. Do we need to, stop hosting events? Because you really got to rip the place apart in order to do this. So I appreciate these comments that, no one's debating the need for clean water. So it's encouraging to hear that I think we're all thinking the same thing here. So thank you.
How do they fix it? Put in piping or something?
So Bobby, what they typically do is they build these gravel. Basically what we have to do is build artificial swamps. So they build gravel wetlands, and there is some piping and drainage. And then, they pick a low spot theoretically, and happens all the water runs there. And then it runs through about 18 inches of organic swamp material, then gravel. And then there's pipes at the bottom of the gravel that the water then feeds out. But the swamp collects all the nutrients. And so the nutrients where you have those yucky algae blooms that would have got caught up in natural swamps, we're making artificial swamps in places to catch the water, slow it down, and keep the nutrients in them, and then send it out. So there is certainly some ditching and piping and all that work is part of the work to get it out. They might have it, especially at like Champlain Valley, they may have, theirs would be, a lot more difficult than Franklin County field days, let's say. But that's typically how the systems are engineered and work.
I know at J Peak, I live right near there. They put millions of dollars into these catch basin ponds. And I'm up there a lot. Summer, winter, the whole 9 yards. There's never been enough water in any of those ponds that you could skate on in the winter.
Well,
and in the summer, most of them are empty.
There's a good one in St. Albans right off the interstate that RL Valley's had to build. And you can actually see, like, if you look there, after an event, it's full of water, and then in a couple days it seeps through. And the whole point is to slow that water down for erosion control, but also the filtration. So they're not supposed to hold water. They're supposed to collect it, slow it down, and then move it on at a more sustainable pace. I mean, I'm not an engineer, that's just the concept. But they are expensive. I mean, the typical one that has to be built in the town is about $600,000 from initial design to land acquisition to completion of the construction per unit. We've got to build like, we've got like $20 million worth of these we have to build in the town of St. Albans alone. So it keeps me up at night because I've got to get this done by 2036. And to Senator Collimore's point, that's not a lot of time. And, you know, we got to make the progress or else we get fined.
Chris?
Well, I'll just point out, you know, we spent a lot of time in this committee talking about the reaction and obligation on farms to try to mitigate their runoff. And so, you know, this is other landowners, you know, sympathetic and otherwise dealing with the same burden. And if we're frankly, I might argue that we should have started with sort of impervious surfaces in our more developed areas. But the fairs are getting lumped into that because any large impervious surface is getting lumped into that. And you know, this is the hard stuff that we're dealing with, and none of us is casual about, you know, water quality issues either. I think those are pretty broadly shared values, but it is just the struggle of paying for it. And let me just make it clear, Jackie and Diane and everybody, I know that you have a short time period to earn money, absolutely, and you have, you know, my support to get assistance to do this. So please don't hear me being dismissive about that, not at all. And I, you know, to hear these other challenges that are being placed on you for activities that we've run in this state for a century, you know, and now the fire marshal is concerned. I mean, it makes you crazy. It turns me into a conservative. So you know, I think
I hope so. That's the best news I've heard in years.
Well, it's those issues. And when I try to do work on my house and I go get permits, it's just like it staggers. It staggers the imagination. So I think it's fair to say you have support from us on all the challenges ahead. And you know, I just want to make clear that the water quality stuff is very broadly applied as a burden. We're going to hear about it in the legislature and in the communities. It's gonna the volume is going to amplify because the regulations are kind of coming due in that sense. And unfortunately, you know, we just didn't understand this a long time ago. Would have been a lot easier when we were building the Champlain Valley Fair to do this right out of the gate, right? But we didn't understand the science. And we didn't
to be fair, none of these fairgrounds would be allowed to be built today and permitting without this. So it's basically retrofitting old development.
I don't think the science was even there. I think the science is
old engineering used to get the water out as quick as possible, and then we realized that's what's causing a lot of pollution. Yeah. So we've got to re-engineer. You know, the concept used to be get moisture and water away from infrastructure as quick as possible.
And the concept used to deliver high octane phosphorus to the farms, right? I mean, you know, so
the government paid the bill.
Yeah. Well, so we've been geniuses right along, but you know, I think I would say for myself, and it sounds like others, you know, we're happy to try to help you through this. And you know, frankly, I think broadly our nonprofit partners across the state are going to need help with this. And it's a good reminder to inject these dynamics into our one-time spending discussions right now. So thank you.
Well, we're using up a lot of probably your time. You're supposed to be somewhere else. But anyways, thanks a lot for coming in this morning and And, you know, if ever we can assist you and things, you know, let Jackie know and she'll let us know, or call us yourselves. But, you know, we're from the government and we're here to help you. So,
Thank you very much.
well,
Minnie.
actually, we really are here to help you. We're your representatives. So
Yes.
please let us know if there's something that we can assist you with. And again, thanks a lot for coming in this morning.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your time today. This was a great conversation. Really appreciate all of you. We're heading to House Ag now, so
All right.
we'll see your compadres. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good little discussion. So maybe Corey acts like he's got a calculator or something. Maybe he could add up what we gotta go down to ask for to help with the 3-acre rule.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's understanding the impervious, but I could probably, A&R should be able to, and most of them have an estimate. But I mean, like Champlain Valley said they need $1.5 million. That doesn't surprise me. I mean, the number will be big. It'll be 10 to 15 million probably for all the fairs combined. But if you do it over a couple of capital bills over a couple of years and start with the high priority ones, like in the Champlain Valley, and move on, I think we can. But yeah, I'll reach out to A&R and some other folks and see if we can come up with a number and see what we can do to try to get, you know, even a special grant program for the fairs that they can apply to as they're ready to. Because really, theoretically, it's about a 3-year process. They're going to need a year of engineering, a year of initial engineering and scoping, and a year of design engineering, and then go out to bid and construct. So even getting them a couple $1 million to get the engineering done this year is a step forward. And then they'll come back with real numbers of what they actually need to build this stuff.
Yep.
But I'll reach out to A&R and get that.
We're running a little bit behind, but I want to thank Allison and Nellie for being with us this morning, and thanks for waiting the 15 minutes or so that we've been on with the previous crew. But welcome to the committee, and we're gonna hear presumably from both of you. And I don't know, Allison, are you leading off?
I am, yes.
Yes. Well, for the we are the Senate Ag Committee, and I chair the committee. I'm Bobby Starr from Essex, Orleans. Chris?
Good morning, Chris Pearson from Chittenden County.
Morning, Anthony Polina, Washington County.
Ryan Collmore from Rutland County.
Corey Parent from Franklin County.
So you can see we're scattered around the state to some degree, and it's good to have you with us this morning. And so I'll turn it over to you, Allison, to get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Starr, and all members of the Senate Agriculture Committee. It's great to be here today. My name is Allison Neihart, and I am the Vermont State Director for Rights and Democracy. Today, we have over 24 of our members speaking in committees throughout the legislature. And I have some remarks to share with you on behalf of Rights and Democracy. And after that, you'll have an opportunity to hear from one of our member leaders, Neely. So before I begin, I would like to share a land acknowledgement with the committee. Rights and Democracy acknowledges the Mohican in southern Vermont and Abenaki peoples as the traditional caretakers of Ndakina, which includes parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, New England, and Quebec. As guests on the unceded territory of the Mohican and Abenaki peoples, we honor their ancestors, elders, and relations past, present, and emerging. We also acknowledge that our nation has benefited from the uncompensated and exploited labor represented in the legacy of slavery and the present day reality of migrant farm workers. Thank you. So Rights and Democracy, which we call RAD for short, and our sibling organization, the Rights and Democracy Institute, we were founded in 2015 on the theory of change that it takes people power being engaged year after year to make the kinds of big, bold, and long-term changes we want to see in our state and in our country. So part of that theory of change is that we need political infrastructure, in this case, a membership organization, to sustain that momentum necessary to do the work throughout and in between election cycles. So RAD members and staff work on issues that matter to our communities. We organize for policy change at the state and national level, and recruit and train a pipeline of candidates to run, excuse me, to run for office. Our members are from all walks of life, intergenerational, multicultural, activists, artists, organizers. Most importantly, they're all passionate fighters for true social justice and meaningful change in our communities and across the state. We have members across Vermont, as well as in New Hampshire, where they have a separate organizing program in New Hampshire. We start with what we know, which is that our current systems are rooted in historic oppressions, deeply dysfunctional and fragile. And when those fragile systems break, Vermonters who have been systemically kept out of places of power are those the most impacted. So Abenaki Indigenous people, racial and ethnic minorities, LGBTQI individuals, individuals with disabilities, senior citizens, new Americans, members of the migrant community, youth and young adults, poor and the working poor. These are the people who carry the weight of policies and systems gone wrong. And those individuals are nearly 80% of the Vermont voting population. But they are the least represented in our state government, and in some cases are wholly invisible to those who are enacting the policies that can prove, very meaningful and even sometimes deadly to their communities. So our mission is to bring people together, to take bold action, build healthy communities, and make the values of those communities guide the principles of our government. We are building a popular movement to advance rights and build a real democracy. We believe that we can achieve a society where people earn a livable wage, have access to affordable health care, and where a progressive and equitable tax system supports an economy that protects the environment and human rights. So it is our pleasure to be here to testify with you today and share our visions of collective liberation and a more just and vibrant Vermont. Regionally, the Rights and Democracy Institute has joined forces with hundreds of organizations across New England to bring a shared agenda that amplifies power and the will of the people. And we have formed the Renew New England Alliance to push forward bold structural change across 6 states with a focus on climate and just transition. In Vermont, this has taken the form of a campaign we call Vermont Renews, which is a coalition of leading grassroots organizations, labor unions, racial justice groups, frontline communities, and environmental advocates. We've come together to address our state's overlapping crises, including mass unemployment, racial injustice, the coronavirus pandemic, educational inequity, and climate change. In Vermont, we are led in that response to these intersecting crises by a BIPOC-centered advisory group of experts who are guiding the process and the policy proposals that will help us reach our climate goals. Currently, we are working on innovative policy proposals in the areas of environmental justice, housing justice, education equity, food justice, green justice zones, and criminal justice. And in this legislative cycle, our current bill and issue priorities include the following. So RAD sees that bold and progressive action is needed immediately to combat the climate crisis. And we believe that this work must be centered in equity, and so must begin with passing a strong, well-funded, and supported environmental justice bill, S-148. This bill, sponsored by Senator Ron Hinsdale, is a crucial bedrock to a just transition for Vermont. The environmental justice bill is just a start, though. We also need meaningful action in other areas. For housing justice, this means passing weatherization at scale that prioritizes our low-income community members and sets labor standards for the industry to ensure that weatherization jobs created are good-paying jobs. It also means addressing the needs of all Vermonters, including low-income homeowners, renters, and the houseless. This can be done by passing a housing omnibus bill that includes emergency housing, temporary and permanent housing for the houseless, tenants' rights, and tenant protections, such as those provided for in H448, the Burlington City Just Cause Eviction Charter Change, which passed out of the House Government Operations Committee just yesterday and is planned for a full House vote this week. To achieve a just food system in Vermont, we must create equitable access to land, farming, and food. Specifically, we'd like to highlight H273, the BIPOC Land Access Bill that has been supported by Representative Chena, and H32, a bill that would provide universal school breakfast and lunch for all Vermont public school children. The universal school meals legislation needs to be passed as soon as possible so all Vermont school districts can plan their next year's budgets for next year. We also know that some of the best experts on what is best for our communities are the community members themselves. So we are highly prioritizing H440, a bill to create green justice zones. This initiative will use data mapping, community design, and a participatory budgeting process to support community revitalization in communities who have experienced the most harms by the current climate crisis. When it comes to our public education system, we have a long way to go to make sure that all Vermont schools are equitable and welcoming for all students. And we need to ensure full implementation of the Act 1 process to advance curriculum equity, remove police from schools, and develop an education funding system that is as equitable as possible. As the Vermont Tax Structure Commission has reported, this means shifting away from a funding system based on primarily property taxes to one based on income taxes, as Bill H388 would accomplish. We all know that there is an enduring issue of police violence across the nation, disproportionately impacting communities of color. A just and transparent criminal justice system is a crucial part of building an inclusive and equitable Vermont. We must pass S254 to end qualified immunity, which would create accountability for police officers and give more tools for victims of police brutality or misconduct to get the justice they deserve. In addition, we need action on S228 that would ban no-knock warrants, like those that led to the deaths of Breonna Taylor and just earlier this month of Amir Locke. We also need passage of S250 that would make great strides in data collection, independent investigations, and greater rights for Vermonters accused of a crime. And of course, we are ever present for many other conversations relating to social justice issues for building a Vermont in which all of our community members can thrive, including ending the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers, passing a comprehensive opioid crisis omnibus bill, and advancing workers' rights in Vermont through legislation, including the card check bill and the prevailing wage bill. So in all of this, it's important that we lift the voices of the people. And today I'm joined by one of our amazing leaders, Neely Jennings. I'd like to invite Neely to share her remarks now.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. Welcome, Neely. Good
Yes.
to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Senators, and thank you for your service. My name's Neely Jennings. I live in Starksboro, Vermont with my husband and 2 kids. They're ages 2 and 6. They're in the other room with stomach bugs right now, so hopefully they won't barge in on me. I do hope to run for office when my kids are a little older, so it's a thrill to witness the real life behind the scenes committee meetings about the field and fair days and all that. Fair and field days. I have lived here for about 10 years. But before that, I grew up in Windsor, Connecticut. And then I've lived in Austin, Texas, Boston, Montreal, Michigan, Chicago, kind of bounced all over the place. So I kind of bring a perspective of having paid attention to local grassroots politics in all those places. I'm a co-owner of Aorta, which is a national cooperative consulting business that works with organizations to help them align their external values with their internal practices and policies. So I wanted to talk today about a few things. One is that I recently joined the board of Acorn, which is Addison County Relocalization Network. And I just wanted to share a little bit, I think, because the work that we're doing connects with the work of the Ag Committee. We do work to promote local food systems and access in Addison County, and the work that we're focused on right now, we do a bunch of different programs and things, but we recently launched an online wholesale market to help connect local farmers and producers to wholesale buyers. And we eventually want to connect this with like a physical food hub where producers could aggregate their products and then distribute them for wholesale purchase. And so there's other food hubs like this in Vermont and around the country that we're looking at, and we're doing a feasibility study this year. So we've got funding from Working Lands Enterprise Initiative, Vermont Food Bank, and the USDA to help with these efforts to launch a food hub. So yeah, as someone living in Addison County, which is one kind of like a agricultural heartland kind of a place, we have lots of my neighbors are vegetable farmers, dairy farmers, maple sugar producers, and other kinds of value added food producers. And I'm always pretty appalled when I go into my local grocery store in Bristol, Vermont, and there's like almost no products from Vermont or Addison County in there, except for maybe like one section of maple syrup and maybe some bacon or something. So I think that Acorn's efforts to scale distribution will help local farmers get their products into the hands of wholesale buyers and at a price that is actually desirable for the farmers and isn't kind of cutting their profits the way that a lot of distributors do. And then I also, as a parent of young kids who eat breakfast in school at lunch every day, I've really been pleased with the way that our local food service providers and coordinators in the schools are trying to source ingredients locally. And I think this food hub will actually help with that, to make it easier for them so they don't have to buy from like 7 different producers to get one meal together. We're also planning to partner with bigger vendors like Porter Hospital, restaurants, caterers, grocery stores, nursing homes, Middlebury College, because that's right in the heart of Addison County. And we're, as part of this whole plan, we're going to hopefully reduce greenhouse gas emissions by powering our delivery service with electric vehicles and helping to increase sales for kind of regenerative farmers who are doing farming practices that help the land. So yeah, I think I just wanted to share about that. It's not necessarily tied to specific legislation that y'all are looking at, but I think it's helpful to have a perspective of what's going on in the ground. And especially, I don't think any of you are based in Addison County. So just thought I would share a little bit about that. And then I do want to pivot a little bit and speak a little more to one of the bills that Allison mentioned that is important to me, which is House Bill 273, which promotes racial and social equity in land access and property ownership. So yeah, I feel like this bill is important to repairing our state and our nation's history of racial discrimination and genocide. I know like in Allison's at the beginning, she did a land acknowledgement. And I think when we're talking about farms and land in Vermont, we're talking about a land that was largely taken from Abenaki peoples and other indigenous people and wealth in this country that was built with the labor of enslaved people. So I think this bill would directly help Vermonters who have historically suffered from discrimination to gain individual and collective access to land and housing. And I think sometimes it can be hard for white people in Vermont who aren't direct recipients of inherited wealth to then get behind a bill that wouldn't directly benefit them because they're struggling too, right? And in my town, I think almost half of the students in our school benefit from free or reduced school lunch, even before the COVID funds made it available to everyone. So that's an indicator that we have a pretty high level of poverty. And I think that poverty is so prevalent because of the wealth that was created in this country is being hoarded by corporations and billionaires and not being distributed. So I think we do need to get behind all kinds of legislation that helps redistribute that wealth. Paid family and medical leave, increased minimum wages, affordable access to healthcare, childcare, and housing. These are things that impact everyone in my community, and I'm sure across the state of Vermont. But I do think we can do those things and also make it a priority to repair our past harms that have impacted Black and Indigenous Vermonters and other Vermonters who have been impacted by discrimination. So, yeah, while many Vermonters are impacted by things like class background, lack of access to housing and healthcare, what white Vermonters don't experience is like another extra barrier of being impacted by race. So yeah, I just wanted to voice my support for that, and I hope it'll move forward soon.
Yeah, well, thanks to both of you for coming in and being with us and offering your points of view and suggestions. We as a committee have spent a great deal of time on some of the issues that you brought up, and the school lunch and breakfast program that's over in the House, of course, started in our committee as a universal meals program, got watered down to a breakfast program, and sent over to the House. I in hopes we can get it back to a universal meals program, but we'll in local foods we've been supporters to help our local producers for years, and made it easier for farm stands to be built years ago because the state highway department went through and said, oh, these are all illegal, they're too close to the road. And I mean, if you go back in history just a few years, you find so many roadblocks that we've had to take down to promote local farm stands even. And but working on the local foods and the universal meals has been really important to our committee, and more important to the children of the state of Vermont, I think, and the families. So maybe there's some questions from other committee members or things you'd like to say. No, everybody's really happy, I guess.
Well, you were both very clear. Thank you.
I'm curious, and I will be thinking of you the next time I pull over at a farm stand and don't have, and it's legally allowed to be there. But I am curious, how politically possible do you think this BIPOC land access thing is? Because it seems like the universal school meals is very appetizing across the board. I don't know why someone wouldn't support that, but the BIPOC one is more controversial. I'm curious what you think about it.
You should sit in with us on the universal meals program. It's a
it is,
no-brainer, right?
Okay.
we fought for, I don't know how long to.
What are the arguments against it?
all
Cost
all
money.
about
It
money.
costs money, right? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I will say I'd rather pay higher taxes if it meant everyone gets free meals personally, as someone who has more resources than some other
Yeah,
people.
I mean, the committee, we got a good vote on our bill last year, but it's been a long time coming. I mean, we
Yeah.
worked on universal meals, I bet, for 4-6 years, I would say, without looking it up, and meeting after meeting and proof after proof that it was the best thing to do for our children.
Right.
And we're spending $20,000 a year per child to send them to school, and yet we're arguing over peanuts to feed them. And no, it's been a long fight. Your other question, that bill has to be over in the House, because I
Right, it's
haven't
a House bill. Yeah, you
Yeah,
haven't
I-
seen it before.
seen it, or really, our plate's pretty full with just the Senate bills that we get.
Yeah,
And so I haven't looked that bill over. I don't know if any of the other committee members have or have not. And if it comes to the Senate, if it passes the House, I'm sure it would probably come to our committee. But Chris, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the bill closely, but I just wanted to offer that we do work typically in this committee's loud advocates for programming that helps farmland transition. So we have this whole generational shift happening in dairy, and
Mhm.
we've been, it's not been a unmitigated success by any stretch, but we've been trying to make sure there's conservation planning, and that makes it more affordable. So there's a lot going into this broad strategy of trying to make sure that our farmland, frankly, doesn't get consolidated only into big dairy, bigger and bigger dairy,
Yeah.
which we have seen some trends of. And
Yeah.
so it's not specific necessarily to BIPOC ownership, but more broadly, trying to make land accessible to new farmers, to starting operations, to people interested in diversified ag. In that way, the state and this committee has been doing that work for many, many years through primarily through our conservation work and through Vermont Housing Conservation Board.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's I'll send you. I have like a Instagram post that summarizes the bill in like 5 quick slides, so I'll send that to you all, and you can just read up on it that way rather than having to pour through a 20-page document.
Yeah, that would be helpful. The other thing, I think one of you mentioned working lands, maybe working land program, and that's another thing that we spend quite a lot of time getting facts and figures and together to present to the Appropriations Committee. Well, actually, we send recommends down to the Appropriations Committee to, once we've done the work, to support that. And we just put, they were basically, their money was all allocated for 22, and we gave them an additional $2 million to go through from once the supplemental budget passes through to June 30th. So they'll
June
be
30th
able to,
of this year.
yeah, this
Okay.
year, plus I think there's $7 million for 23.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, we'll definitely be going back to them for more support, because this is just the first chapter of this food hub thing. So that's great to know.
Yeah. And we've heard, not this year, certainly. And I'm not quite sure about last year, but usually you have a big turkey farmer, Paul Stone down in Addison County,
Okay.
does 20 or 30,000 turkeys.
Oh my gosh.
He talked to us a lot about setting up a slaughter facility, and I think he actually did. He or his son set one up on their farm, but he talked a lot the last time he was in about food hubs and how that would really, if we could, we have one up in Hardwick that we kind of, they're ahead of the game, you might say. And so they take in food from all farmers and then they distribute it out to schools and restaurants. Not so much restaurants, but schools and hospitals and nursing homes and
we'll have to get the name of that one. I bet it's on our list of ones to kind of interview, but yeah, and I have bought that turkey at the grocery store from that guy Stone. So yeah, but yeah, that's what we have in mind, is kind of aggregating and distributing out to vendors.
Well, anything else that Allison, that you'd have to offer? Any more questions from you folks to us or from the committee?
Aren't we supposed to get a picture, Allison?
Yeah.
Can we take a picture?
Is it all right if we do a screenshot?
Okay, look like you're interested in what we have to say. Yeah. You have to look like, that's so fascinating. Want me to do it, Allison?
Sure.
Okay.
And I'll just add, I wanted to underscore some of Neely's remarks about the land access and property ownership bill that's currently in the House. I also live in Addison County. I'm in Middlebury, and I am very aware of all of the upcoming land transfers that are going to be happening around me. And I think that, I've been involved in some efforts to have alternative structures for land ownership, some commons models that are currently being piloted by the Vermont Land Trust and other organizations. So I would just like to plant the seed that you might be hearing more about those in the future. And I think that they're a really good fit for people who don't have some of that inherited generational wealth, who don't come from farming families, to be coming in and doing community-based collaborative land ownership models that help them get on the land in ways that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. And I don't recall whether that is specifically in that bill, but I hope that that will continue to be more visible as an alternative model in Vermont.
Well, thanks for the info. And if we get to that bill, if it gets to us, maybe if you'd like to come in and testify, we, certainly welcome you. Yep.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Take a picture.
So did you get that picture or not?
I'm going to take it right now. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you.
I bet that's a winner.
Oh, I'll share it with you. You can put it on your own Instagram.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your time and your work.
All right. Thanks for your service.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you all. Yep. Bye. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't got a companion bill to what they were talking about. I don't believe even in the Senate. I don't know where that is in the House. Linda, was you able to get hold of Scott at all, or?
Bill Scott, no, I'm sorry, he hasn't responded.
No. We were going to talk a little about 466, the water issue that Will Stevens brought up. You know Will, right? Chris and Anthony. It's he sent a long letter, and we thought that he was going to be with us, be able to be with us today, but he certainly wasn't able to be with us. And Bill Scott from down in Virginia, Middlebury, he was the ag teacher at the high school down there. He sent a note. He works with kids, still works with kids doing veggie growing and stuff. And he had a comment that he wanted to leave, but Chris?
Well, I'm trying to understand. I'm looking, Linda forwarded us all this email, and I'm looking at it, and it seems like he's reacting to a proposed bill that at H466. And I guess I'm wondering if any of us know if that's going to be advanced, or is it one of those, who knows if it has any support that we're reacting to, like licensing bicycles or whatever, so.
Well, it passed the House.
It did pass the House?
Yeah, it's over in natural resources.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. All right, thank you.
That means it has more legs, Senator Pearson.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I heard they were their bicycles that they're trying to license has got a basket on the front, and they're gonna put the bill in the basket and push them both through at the same time. I think those things should be licensed. But anyways, you guys in Burlington are taking away streets and making them just for bicycles.
Whose streets? Our streets, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Burlington streets.
I'm a Lowe's or a Home Depot away from never needing to go to Chittenden County. So I just want one built in St. Albans. Since Walmart came, we stay here. So
you got an Aubuchon's up there. I mean, what's wrong with that? Come on.
Yeah, but Lowe's or Home Depots are handy.
Yeah, we have Hometown Hardware.
We have an Ace and we have an Aubuchon, but hard to go buy appliances and cabinets and all that in one place.
So anyways, committee, we had that sort of on the schedule to hear from them, and they aren't available. So I didn't know if there was something else that we should be working on, but there wasn't anything actually scheduled for other than that for this time. We got some stuff coming from Michael in regards to ag issues, and he's separating out things that we could possibly get done, maybe, and so that that'll be coming, but it's not here yet. So did any of you have anything you wanted to bring up in regards to, the runoff from those fairs is going to be, I think, a pretty big issue.
Yeah, I am curious. There will be a lot of people impacted by that, obviously, and nobody's going to be thrilled about the cost. But I'm not aware of any discussion around ARPA investments to mitigate some of those costs. For, I also think about our community theaters and other people that, are sort of similar to the fairs in the sense of their station in the community, but they happen to have a parking lot or whatever. Not exactly bankrolling huge profits every year. So I guess my first question is, has anybody heard about any discussion along those lines? It seems like a terrific use of one-time money.
Well,
Haven't heard a word. No.
no, I am up here. I haven't heard of much, but like Sacred Heart, the Catholic Church in Newport, I bet they have well over 3 acres of parking lots and roofs. And I mean, I could see that almost doing that crew in. I mean, see, years back when I talked about that, I thought the 3-acre rule was big on non-pervious surfaces like asphalt driveways and you know, I doubt. And you want to hear a good one on that?
Sure, yeah.
When I built that new garage a couple of years ago, wanted to leave it at dirt, right? Gravel, and had it slope good and ditches, you know, nice grass ditches on each side. Well, the state highway guy came along because I had to get them to sign off on the Act 250 permit. Well, he said, you know, this driveway should be paved and got to keep any dirt out of the road. And I said, well, if you want the sucker paved, I'll pave it. But I said, when I got my Act 250 permit, they wanted it gravel. and so it's it's non-pervious, you know, so it'll run off and stay on the property and float through any runoff from it. Well,
Bobby, the state considers gravel impervious now.
Oh yeah, well, they changed the rules. But so I called the Act 250 coordinator up and she said, don't you dare to pave that. And I said, well, I don't want to pave it. I said, the highway guy told me that it should be paved. Well, she said, I'll call them and get this squared away for you. And I said, I'm not going to get between the two of you, but I'll do what the hell ever you say so I can get the job done. And so the regional district coordinator from 250 had to call transportation and get it squared away. But it's weird how one agency will fight the other agency. I mean, why can't they get their rules, you know, in a line? And it's like there's no ever getting together with their counterparts or something. But
I think this 3-acre rule is going to affect more people than it won't affect. You got hospitals, you got car dealers, you've got schools, malls.
And then you've got Burlington City, and on a good rainy day, I watched their treatment facility. It's very impressive.
Well, and we're having more intense storms. So it's all,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we have, you see it though all the time. I mean, at my kids' school, they put in a little rain garden. It's a constant work. And if we, as much as I hear it chafing on you, you know, one option is to not do it as much and put more pressure on farmers. So, you know, it's got to give somewhere. This is a little beyond our control in the sense of keep wishing it away. People are going to do it.
Federal.
It's EPA, yeah.
Yeah.
You know who passed this law? Because when we sent out the bills for the first time in town of St. Albans, so I went back to all research. Richard Nixon. This is from the Clean Water Act. This got put in place. Large municipalities have been doing this since the early 90s, 80s. And then in the 2000s, it came down to states like Vermont. And then by 2012, Vermont had figured out that the municipalities need to take on a lot of this change with these MS4 permits and the TS4 permits. And here we are. So this is 50 years in the making. It's finally just getting down to us.
We keep beating up on the farms, and I go over to my cousin has a place over by St. Albans town down there in the bay.
Yeah.
Go over to see him, and I ride up along that lake. And 20 years ago, there used to be little cabins along there. And now you ride up through there, and there's triple decker homes and lawns right to the beach. They don't have to have buffers, I guess, on their land.
Well, they do. You have shoreline protection. What the shoreline protection bill did to a lot of my constituents before they're my constituents, they had 6 months and they went and did a lot of work in that 6 month period before the state could tell them now. The other issue too, if you think about 100 years ago, we built our roads right up to the water through like McQuam Shore. Literally, we have roads 10 feet from the lake. One, from a grand list value, we should have built them 400 feet back so people could have had nice homes on the lake that we could charge them plenty of taxes for. And two, you got that impervious, that flow off of them.
Yeah, I've had quite a few farms tell me that those buffer strips they think are really helping to make the runoff, if there is any, a lot better. The only other thing on that stuff that we should maybe be doing as an ag committee is, we've required farmers to put these in, but we never required either agency, ag or environmental conservation, to put a couple of test wells, up through in those on the edge of those buffers toward the lake, to take tests out of them to see if they're actually working. And sometime I think we should ask the agency of ag and the environmental folks, well, why don't you ever test these buffer strips to see if they're actually catching a lot of what we're telling people that they'll stop from getting to the water? But because how do we know unless we test it? And well, is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up this morning?
Linda had sent a message about a meeting with Diane Bothfeld at noon, but I've already got a meeting scheduled with the administration at noon every Wednesday, so I won't be able to make that.
Yeah, I got to do a thing for my day job between noon and 1.
Yeah, there's meetings all over the place at noontime. I mean, Chris and Brian and I've been at it since what, 7:30.
Yeah.
That's got to be the earliest on the record meeting I've ever had.
Really? Wow.
7:30 on Zoom? Yeah. I mean, in a committee, I've met at 8 or 8:30 in the crunch time, but never 7:30.
I have a committee for one of the boards I'm on. We meet at like 7 a.m. once a month.
Yeah. You ought to get up earlier, Chris.
I get up at 4:30 every morning.
I'm just saying, for an official meeting, that's pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt if we had many watchers. But anyway, I think we're rolling along to some degree with that. I mean, it's looking pretty good. I gotta get Hardwick back south though. They don't have anything in common with the northern part of of our district.
Senator Pearson said he's going to take care of that for you, Bobby.
Yeah, well,
What am I taking care of?
You're putting Hardwick back in with Lamoille or Caledonia.
it
I don't
should
know.
be in one of them, that's for sure.
Well,
But
there's a lot of
anyway-
should be's that the numbers don't support. I mean, that's as you well know.
Indeed.
Well, we can keep Allison Jeanette lined up. We're gonna be doing really, really, really well. But anyways, we'll call it a morning then, guys, and we'll